The 2026 offseason is just about to begin for the Dallas Cowboys. We're going to tell you three veterans who could have a big impact on their decision-making next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us the #1 sports podcast network. And today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. He is Landon McCool. And on today's show, we're going to take a look at three players who could really decide what the Cowboys do and prioritize, not only in free agency, but also with trades and the draft. We'll talk about Tyler Guyton. We'll talk about Jaydon Blue. We're going to start with Shemar James. But before we do that, got a little bit of news out of Philadelphia. Jeff Stoutland, their awesome offensive line coach, is moving on from the team. He hasn't taken another job yet. He wasn't fired. It sounds like he just wants to leave. And the reason why we're mentioning it on today's show is because it's a huge deal.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're on Super Bowl row today, and they're talking about a lot of stuff. This is the biggest news of the day, and I don't think anyone's talking about it because, to me, he was as much responsible. And you and I talked about it before the show. He was as much responsible for the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, being a team that they are, a lot of their success as really any other single person in that organization. As much as Howie Roseman, as much as Nick Sirianni, he is the best position coach at the position where having a good position coach is the most important. And he's the best position coach in the league. And I think he's shown it in and out. I mean, he's having to go draft a left tackle off your plate by just being able to transform a 6'8" rugby player into a Pro Bowl level left tackle. So, it's a huge blow for the Eagles. And I will say even beyond that too, just like the obvious loss in coaching brain power and talent is it just things the smell downwind from Philadelphia right now is not great. It smells like rotting bodies right now. Philly does not look, it is not trending in a right direction from the Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's a team that feels like they're cooked. And if you're a Cowboy fan, which obviously you are because you're listening to this podcast,
or you hate the Cowboys and you're crying right now because this is really bad for this.
It's great news for the Cowboys because it presents an opening. He's been able to do so much, not only with elite talent, but whenever they've had injuries or whenever they needed to develop guys or draft guys, they've been really good because Stoutland's been incredible. Think back to when the Cowboys had Bill Callahan in 2016 or 2014, how good that offensive line was, not just because you had Hall of Fame caliber players, but because you got them to play together. It's like that, plus somebody who's also able to develop players into, that have never played the game before, into Pro Bowl players. Huge loss for Philadelphia, and that's why we're starting the show with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's relative to us. I mean, it's just because it shows you maybe the trend of the Eagles offseason overall. They hire Sean Mannion, who is not exactly an inspired offensive coordinator choice. And you know that it's not inspired because he was basically their 8th choice. They interviewed up to 10 guys who all either politely declined or took jobs elsewhere. Yeah, it just things don't seem to be trending well in Philadelphia right now.
All right, let's talk about our team for a second. Yeah. Let's talk about Shemar James because I'm looking at this linebacker position, and like you and every other Cowboy fan, we'd like to see the Cowboys improve that room this offseason. But I think a lot of how they're going to address the position depends on what Christian Parker and the rest of the coaching staff thinks of Shemar James. Because if you think he's a nobody who is a special teamer, then you've got to go out and find a starting linebacker, either in free agency or early in the draft. But if you think Shemar James is like a low-level starter, high-level backup, well, maybe a linebacker in round 1 isn't the biggest need. And maybe you can kind of cobble together with your linebacker core that you have right now. And maybe you can wait till day 2 to add another body. But I think Shemar James, who's extremely young, who's like 3 years younger than a couple of the linebackers in this class, is going to be an important piece for this Cowboys team going into the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, a lot like in the conversation that we kind of had last year about Leofau. I think that's similar to what we're talking about here with James. I think the question is not necessarily like, do you ignore a linebacker in this draft because of how you feel about Shemar James? I don't think that that's necessarily the question, but I think it helps kind of gauge to you how serious the need is there, right? And whether it frames it in the situation of, well, do we need to go out and spend a first round pick on another linebacker? Or do we feel like Shemar James could be part of a rotation that's comparable if we went out and decided to, roll with DeMarvion Overshown, and then maybe, if we get another day 2 pick somehow, some way, you spend a day 2 pick. And I think it's not even just those pieces of information, just to be honest. Like, it's also the fact that this is an incredibly deep linebacker class. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's easy to kind of paint a picture with all of these elements. Hey, I kind of like Shemar James a little bit. You go back and do a review. You comb over his snaps. You have the new coaches look over him and see what they think of him. And if they think that maybe he could be part of a rotational situation, it'll just allows you to kind of push the resource spend on the linebacker. Maybe it's out of the first round because you feel like not only are you getting a higher quality than normal guy that you could get in a normal second or third round because of the depth of the class, but also you're getting the opportunity to go fill your other 2, maybe even bigger needs in the first round with players that are appropriately priced with first round picks.
And we're not delusional here. Like, the Cowboys aren't banking on Shemar James to be like the next Luke Kuechly or anything like that. We're talking about him as like, could he be a low-end linebacker 2, high-end linebacker 3? And if he's not that, then maybe linebacker is a bigger need than we're even anticipating. So that's kind of the thought process here, is if this coaching staff likes him, I could actually see the Cowboys ignoring linebacker in free agency and waiting until the draft to grab somebody. But again, if they don't think he's anything, maybe they have to do both. Maybe they have to go out and sign Nakobe Dean and spend a early round pick on a linebacker, because we should also mention DeMarvion Overshown is going into the final year of his contract.
Yeah.
I think the Cowboys would like to have him back, but he's not been the most durable. And you wonder what he's going to look like physically after all of these knee injuries. And what is it going to look like 2-3 years down the road? I think Shemar James, if he can prove this offseason that he can be at least a reliable backup, maybe that does change how they're prioritizing these needs.
Yeah, and Leofau too. Like, I think he's a similar kind of situation with an extra year gone on his contract tolling. But I think, to me, Shemar James is the guy that's the more likely to be the better fit. I think just because of what we saw last year. He's better. He's a better athlete. I just think, and overall, and I think that, overall you saw, improvement from him as the season went on. I think that, we've seen enough of some of these other guys that it's Shemar James that at least, and again, like you said, it's not that we all are recognizing that linebacker is a need here. I think what Marcus is just laying out pretty heavily is that linebacker is a position that they are going to spend resources on heavily, whether it's free agency, the draft, or likely both. They are going to be spending here. It's about how much do you need to prioritize high quality resources on it, because you have other positions where you absolutely still need to spend high quality resources. Can Shemar James blunt your linebacker need enough that you feel like, hey, we can spend a day 2 pick and a veteran, and that grouping of those guys, and plus Shemar James is enough to get this done.
All right, let's talk about Jaden Blue, who really didn't play at all until week 18. Is he going to have any impact in the Cowboys' offseason plans? We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure that you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same game parlay, this is the game that everyone's been waiting for. So if you're a new customer, all you have to do is bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season's over. We've got to wait like 7 more months for football again. It's the last call for football on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. This episode is brought to you by ZocDoc. Finding a doctor that you actually like can feel like discovering a diamond in the rough. Sure, you want someone who's in network, nearby, and has availability, but you also want a doctor who listens and makes you feel comfortable and explains things clearly. That kind of doctor exists, and finding them is easy with ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website that helps you find and book high-quality in-network doctors so you can find someone you love without all of the hassle. We're talking about booking in-network appointments with more than 150,000 providers across all 50 states, covering over 200 specialties from primary care and dentistry to dermatology and eye care. Stop putting off those doctor appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL to find and instantly book a doctor that you love today. That's ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. And thanks to ZocDoc for sponsoring this message. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. If you haven't done so already, check out the new Everydayer Club. You're going to get ad-free episodes to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, available on all podcast app for just $5 a month. Go to lockedoncowboys.supercast.com or check out the link in the show notes. All right, Lane, let's talk about Jaydon Blue, who was somebody that we were really excited about during the offseason. We were excited about during the preseason for a little bit, but he was on and off the field with injuries. Didn't see him much until the Denver game. He fumbles the ball. Then we literally didn't see him again until week 18. Do you think there's any chance that he could impact Cowboys' plans at running back this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the chance that he does is going to be, his opportunity to show it is going to be in places that we're not going to get to see. It's going to be in how often is he showing up in the locker room. We've heard that he's developed a friendship with Javonte Williams, and that he's trying to learn how to be a little bit more professional and kind of how to follow along in his footsteps a little bit and know how to do the dance of a professional NFL running back. And that's going to be key. And I think that kind of trust that he's, investing time in his craft to get better, I think is going to be an important first step, because I mean, all signs have pointed to this guy being an incredibly talented guy, but unless you've got the kind of work ethic and you can be put on the field and relied upon, you're not going to have the impact. And that's, especially when you and I have talked about a lot that the Cowboys are really, really in the market for a running back too right now. I think Malik Davis did a very admirable job, but I think, the Cowboys could really use another back that they could feature specifically. I think a lightning to Javonte Williams' thunder, as it were, because it sounds like they are bringing back Williams, or at least they're going to try to. So, I mean, obviously Jaden fits that to a T, but if he can't be relied upon enough, then you definitely feel like you need to go out in free agency or in the draft and find somebody that can be a pairing with Williams, because you just felt like you gave him way too many touches this year, and you've got to solve that, whether it's Jaydon Blue or somebody else or a combination. It's got to get solved one way or another.
It feels very much like they're going to bring back Javonte Williams or sign a veteran of similar talent, right? Like whether, again, we could go through the names, but Rico Dowdle, Najee Harris. Again, I'm not saying it's going to be those names, but you guys get the idea. I think the interesting part is, do they spend a mid-round pick, whether that's a third, fourth, or fifth, on a guy to be the backup? Or have they seen enough where they want to continue to develop Jaydon Blue and let him try to grow into that role? Because if you spend, again, I'm going to make up a name. If you spend a fourth-round pick on Jade Knott from Oklahoma, kind of closing the book already on Jaydon Blue, and maybe they have. Again, we don't know for sure, but I think what they do in the draft will tell us a lot about what they think of Jaydon Blue going into the 2026 training camp, at least.
I mean, honestly, I think we all have these expectations because we know the player, and I think we talk about it, and I think we get a lot of questions about when are they going to play Blue, when are they going to play. I mean, he was a day 3 pick, so there's no commitment to like
None.
having to feel like you need to make fetch happen, as they say. I like if you see a guy in the 4th round that you feel like is a quality running back, I mean, go take him. I think whether Jaydon Blue is a part of this conversation is it remains to be seen. I think is going to be something that's going to be determined when probably, like I said, when we don't see football, and then later when we do see football at OTAs and eventually training camp. But I don't think that there's anything that he can do between now and then, that hasn't already been done with his tape from 2025. That is going to change whether or not the Cowboys are feeling like they have to invest in the position outside of him this year, because I feel like that's a resounding yes. It's just about how much are you going to rely on this guy that you didn't even draft until day 3 when you're looking at all the things that are available and what you want to spend.
What's crazy is the tape almost doesn't matter for Jaydon Blue, right? Like if he would have looked awesome in week 18, I don't know if that really, I mean, he did look awesome. Like he looked really good.
He looked good in week 18. Yeah.
I honestly don't know how much it matters in either direction, right? Because for him to become the RB2 almost has nothing to do with what he's doing on the field and everything with how he's preparing and how he's practicing, right? Like if these coaches don't trust you, even if you're a gamer a little bit, like, okay, that's great, but we need to trust you to be in meetings on time and taking notes and learning how to practice the right way and being available. Again, it sounds like Jaydon Blue made strides in that, in those areas this, year. Hopefully, again, he's really young. I think he's 21 years old. Hopefully you see that continue during OTAs and mini camps and training camps. But for him to even get a shot, that's the thing he's got to nail down first.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's almost just like what we talked about with the last situation with Shemar James. It's you're gonna have to go get a running back, right? Like because you didn't see anything from Blue that made you feel otherwise in the 2025. And last year was the proving ground for whether or not he could be, let's say, a feature back next to Javonte Williams, right? But that opportunity just never happened. So since that never happened, maybe something changes in training camp, maybe something changes in OTAs, but that's not when your talent acquisition period is, and you've got to get the talent in this position to secure that you are going to have a running back too. So, I think whether you feel like you need to go out and get a certain type of running back because of how you feel about the trajectory of Jaydon Blue, maybe that's on the table. But honestly, at this point, I feel like the Cowboys have to kind of pretend like he's not on the team and then hope to be pleasantly surprised when they show up in Oxnard.
Our guy Sigmund Bloom from Football Guys always says that teams can't lie during the NFL draft. And if we see the Cowboys like trade up into the 3rd round for a running back, it's going to be a pretty good sign what they think of Jaydon Blue. Probably not in a great direction. But if they don't draft a running back at all, like if we see them go all 7 rounds without drafting a running back, maybe that's an indicator that, hey, they do want to put some faith in Jaydon Blue and give him more opportunities in year 2.
Well, and the need of defense looms large here too, right? Like if they're trading up in the 3rd round to go get a running back after only spending 2 first rounds on defense, that means they're looking past another really big need on defense to go get a second running back, and that shows you probably what they feel about Jaden.
By the way, I wouldn't be surprised if they do something like that because their 4th round pick is fairly early. I wouldn't be surprised if they use some later round draft capital. So maybe some 2027 draft capital to go from, I think it's pick 112 or something like that into like the low 90s or high 90s, just to go get a player that maybe you had a top 60 grade on. That feels very likely. And if it's a running back, that won't be a great sign for Jaydon Blue. Let's talk about Tyler Guyton, who had a good sophomore season, albeit they struggled to stay healthy. What are the plans for Tyler Guyton long-term? We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Indeed. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. If I ever needed to hire someone for the show, I would go straight to Indeed and be very specific about what I needed, real experience, and not just some resume buzzwords. So spend more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. This episode is brought to you by Quo. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our businesses and think there's got to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades that you can make. And that's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled QUO, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. Everyone can see a full conversation thread, which makes seeing replies faster and more personal. It works right from your phone or your computer, and you can even keep your existing number. So it's no surprise Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNFL. That's quo.com/LockedOnNFL. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Let's talk about Tyler Guyton, because we saw some big strides of improvement from Tyler Guyton. But I do wonder what the long-term outlook for the Cowboys tackles are here, because Guyton has not been able to stay healthy. You've got Terence Steele, who's got a big cap number, who I think his play has really regressed over the last couple of years. I thought he was better this year overall, but has regressed. You've got Nate Thomas, who had an up and down sophomore season. I think Tyler Guyton's the key one here. What do you think the Cowboys think of Tyler Guyton going into year 3?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be concerned about the injury situation, although I do think that this year's injury situation was more fluky. And especially considering like all the extra preparation he put into reshaping his body. And look, we hear that kind of talk a lot. Mm-hmm. Tyler Guyton reshaped his body and really worked hard this offseason on getting more flexible. And you saw that result in a change in his body and a change in his ability to be flexible, to get lower in his stance, and he played better. That's why you saw, I think part of the reason you saw a better football player, a more capable football player to get out on the edge, especially on versus quick rushers, and to be effective. So he wasn't perfect. Absolutely. He's still a young player, but I do think that what I saw from him this year when he was healthy was encouraging, to the point where I'm like, that is our left tackle. Like, I think we have the guy. The question is, can we keep him on the field? Right. Like, and I think those are legitimate questions, because again, I do think that the injuries last year were more fluky. It was a high ankle, if I'm not mistaken. It was an ankle both times, wasn't it?
Well, it was a bone bruise, which we thought was a knee sprain, or sorry, we thought was a torn ACL, right?
Yeah.
Then it was a bone bruise. Then it was a high ankle. Then it was a concussion, I believe, at one point. There was a shoulder injury, mixed in there. It was just a lot of random things.
Yeah. And it's, it's not like a series of lower bodies that are all chained together. You know, I mean, there are concerning long-term injury situations that you can look at and identify, you know, how they're connected. This one seems more random. So I am, again, encouraged enough by what I've seen when he's been healthy to feel like we can move forward with this situation. However, it's just like these other two positions. I don't brush it away and saying that you don't have a need here. I do think that you need to figure out a solution for a long-term backup that you feel comfortable with, or at least somebody that you can put in there. I think Nate Thomas has done that at times, but I think as the season wore on, you saw kind of diminishing returns there. So I think that's the question you have. And honestly, at this point, you could put Nate's name on here as well, right? Because I think it's kind of like, where do these two guys fall on the spectrum? And then you're going to have a whole different, separate kind of conversation, obviously, on the other side with Terence Steele. But that's why
I think you and I have kind of been looking at that cap number for Terence Steele. The Cowboys can get out of that deal very easily. But the more I look at it, it's like, is it worth the cap savings, right? Like, it's a big number. It's a lot of cap savings, but you're also opening up another spot that needs to be filled, either through the draft or free agency. And what's the phrase? You'd rather have the devil that you know than the one that you don't, right? Yeah. If you cut Terence Steele and you sign a veteran tackle that's probably around the same cost and around the same caliber player, there's going to be some unknowns there as well. And I'm just wondering, because of Tyler Guyton's injury history, if they don't just try to roll with Terence Steele one more year at right tackle, keep Nate Thomas, and just see what they can do, and then maybe dress it next year if you need to.
Look, I think the way you can justify it is by going to Terence Steele and working something out, right? Like, maybe we put some void years onto your contract, or we sign you to a small deal where we, you know, give you a little bit more guaranteed money. I do think that beyond just like riding it out, I think another year with Clayton Adams and Connor Riley as well, where I do feel like he did play better football last year. I think he fits this system really well. So I do think I would prefer at this point, because of the other needs at other places, to roll with Terence Steele and maybe Nate Thomas plus a veteran, maybe Nate Thomas plus a draft pick or something like that, and see what you've got maybe in Cornelius coming up too. So I think you have options here, but I still feel like to a lesser degree, something does have to happen at the position.
And no interest in moving Tyler Smith out to left tackle and moving Guyton to right tackle?
Not by Tyler Smith.
And that's all that probably really matters here, right? So I agree. But we'll see. I'm very curious to see what happens at the tackle position for the Cowboys this offseason, because that's going to tell us a lot about the future of this offensive line. That is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen of the day. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Cowboys ad-free, plus members-only Discord access, and so much more. Head over to lockedoncowboys.com, lockedoncowboys.supercast.com, make sure I get that right, to join the club. And for those of you on video, we can send you the first ever 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel. And on audio, make your second listen the Locked On NFL podcast. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus _Mosher, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.